What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeremy, the Fishing Lone Star. Today we are talking about Texas rigs, crawls, worms. I'm going to show you the exact baits that I use, some of the colors I like, the setup that I use. We're going to talk about Lake Welsh as well, because the intro that you just saw and some of the catches I'm going to show you throughout this video were all from a recent trip to Lake Welsh. That lake is fishing really well right now. If you're local, go check it out. If you're not, then we're going to talk about Texas rigs and some of my biggest fish catches of the year, what they came from, the baits, the lures, the setup. We're gonna break it all down, talk about it in this video. Oh, it's not a three, monster of a fish. Good fish right there. All right, guys, before we get started into our topic, I first of all have to give a shout out to Shills. You see them here on my boat. Make sure you go follow them on Instagram. The Colony Shills is a local store here in Dallas, or Texas Shills Outdoors is their hunting and fishing kind of outdoors page as well. Go follow both of those, but I'll tell you, Shills is a phenomenal store. I'm gonna overlay some video here to show you the inside of the store versus just talking about it, because it is a phenomenal sporting goods store. There's a ton of cool stuff inside this store, but when it comes to sporting goods, they're pretty much gonna be unmatched, whether it's basketball, football, soccer, indoor gaming like ping pong tables, foosball tables, dart boards, you name it, they've got it. Then when it comes to fishing, they've got tons of electronics for you to choose from for your boat or kayak. They've also got a ton of rod selections, including the TFO rods that I use. They've got a tons of reels that you can try out there in store, right-handed, left-handed, plenty of inventory and in stock, not to mention tons and tons and tons of bait, gear, tackle for you to choose for your next fishing adventure. So make sure you check out shills.com or the Shills local to you. I was gonna say the one here in Dallas, but that may not be local to you. But the one in the Colony is phenomenal, and I'm proud to say that I'm partnered with them and I work with them, and they're a sponsor of this channel, so make sure you check them out. All right, so recently, I've actually been on Lake Welsh now twice in the past 2 months. That is normally a power plant lake. However, the past couple of times I've been out there, the power plant's been shut down. So the water temps have actually been about 2 or 3 degrees warmer than most other local bodies of water here in North Texas. As you know, we're still having a pretty warm winter or early winter. Still got more to come in January and February, but in terms of December, it's been pretty darn mild. And with that, it's come quite honestly a lot of great fish that have also been up shallow, and Texas rigs have been the ticket. So we're going to talk about both worms and crawls, the two that I use, and what's led to a lot of successful fish catches. So first of all, I will say our most recent trip to Lake Welsh, I was using both the Adrenaline Craw that's shown here, this exact color, that watermelon red flake, and I was also using the Blitz Worm. Which the color I was using is a black watermelon red flake. So if you'll see, it's a little bit of a darker tone on top, that's the black, and then a watermelon red flake more on the bottom. It's a nice natural color, but also stands out really well no matter what color or water clarity you're fishing. It's a great color. So I'm gonna get a little bit more into colors in just a minute of those baits that I like to use a lot. But those particular two were the two that I was using on Lake Welsh, and caught some really good fish. Now, I will say, the setup that I'm using, let's talk about that first, because not that it's really unique details, but I'll just talk about it, get that part out of the way, and then we'll dive into some of the juicy details of the colors I like to use, why I use those colors, and show you some awesome fish catches too from a recent trip out to Lake Welsh. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the gear. Now, I throw all my Texas rigs on 20-pound fluorocarbon. I would go 17 to 20 pound unless your water is super clear, and then you may want to go lighter. Don't go too light though. I'd probably say nothing less than 14 pound, because you're throwing a very heavy gauge hook for the most part. Unless you really go to a lighter hook, then you can go to lighter line. But what I like to use is the Katana. These are super sharp hooks, but the Katana 5/0 or 4/0, but mainly the 5/0 EWG hooks, okay? EWG just stands for extra wide gap. It's this gap that you see down here in the bottom of the hook that allows your plastic to slide down. Let me set the rod down. But on hook set, allows your plastic to go into the hook, right? That way you don't miss hook penetration with the fish. So that's all I do is 5/0. Now, I've recently been throwing a heavier weight. All right, this is a 3/8 ounce flipping weight. It doesn't have to be a flipping weight, it can be a worm weight, but I've been recently throwing a little bit heavier weight, mainly just so my bait can get down and stay down. Now, if I'm throwing it around a lot of heavier grass, like hydrilla, then I may use a 1/4 ounce. But even around lily pads, this helps get past the lily pads and get down into a little bit some of the thicker stuff. So flipping weight's what I've been going with lately, and I really like it a lot. And yes, I always do peg it or put a bobber stop on there, whichever one you want to call it. For the reel, all right, now I'm gonna talk about kind of the retrieval method as I talk about the reel and the rod, because the retrieval method does matter a lot, in my opinion, when it comes to Texas rigs. So for the reel, you can use kind of whatever gear speed you want to, although I think this is a 7.5-to-1 custom black by Luz. I really enjoy this reel. I have 3 of them. I like them a lot. I will say that it's a great reel. I've had it now for probably 2 years. I've not had a single issue with any of the 3 of them. But in terms of gear ratio, you can go up to 8.3-to-1, really as fast as you want, because you're not moving the lure with your reel, you're moving the lure with your rod, okay? And you want a pretty sensitive rod. So this is where I would tell you, make sure you've got a good blank, and whoever's manufacturing your rods. I use TFO rods, and you guys know that. This is the 7.3 heavy, all right? 7.3 heavy, but it's a fast action. But that being said, it's got a little bit of a more, I guess you would say, a moderate taper to the end of it. TFO rods in general are more sensitive. Even though it's fast, it's a little bit of a slower taper. That just allows you to keep the fish pinned as you're playing them to the boat, right? It doesn't impact my hook sets at all. I've been able to hook set just fine with a pretty heavy gauge hook, but it's a 7.3 heavy. Normally you could probably throw a medium heavy, but again, I step up to the heavier power with the TFO rods to compensate for a little bit of the slower taper in the action. So hope that makes sense, but this works perfectly for me. I actually have 3 of these rods, the 7.3 heavy, and I use them for swim jigs, underspins, paddle tail swim baits. It's kind of my go-to all-purpose rod. So I have 3 of those, love them a lot. But the retrieval, all right, let's talk about the retrieval. Now I'm going to show you a video so that you can see the retrieval in action. And I want you to notice I am moving the bait with my rod, right? As I lift my rod tip up, that is scooting the soft plastic, either the craw or the worm, along the bottom. And then I point my tip back down and I reel in my slack. Now I've done this, it's muscle memory now. So you'll see I'm going pretty fast in this video, but I'm basically going to lift my rod tip to move the lure. I'm going to point my rod tip back down and I'm going to reel in my slack. And I'm going to keep doing that as I'm moving the lure across the bottom of the water. Water temps were in the upper 60s, so I was moving the lure pretty quickly. If your water temps are slower, then just slow down. You may want to lift your rod tip, hold it there, let the bait sit there for a minute. And one beautiful thing about both the Craw, the adrenaline Craw, and the Blitz Worm, the adrenaline Craw is going to float and is going to sit like this in the water, right? So it's going to stand up. Sorry, I'm gonna move some fuzz there, but it's gonna stand up in the water column just like this in a defensive position. And the Blitz Worm is going to do the same thing. It is going to stand up just like this as well, okay? It's going to, the tail is gonna float. Now the head's gonna be weighted down with your weight, but the tail is gonna float. Now, most big worms, as you go to hop them, that tail is gonna float back down to the bottom, okay? It's gonna kind of lay there lifeless. With this Blitz Worm, when you go to hop it up, that tail's gonna pop up and it's just gonna stay there and wave in the fish's face. And that, I believe, is some of the big fish drawing power that the Blitz Worm and the adrenaline Craw have, and why I like them so much. That's all you'll basically see me throwing when it comes to my soft plastics and my Texas rigs, all right? Now, the hook set. Whenever you are lifting your rod tip and you then feel tap, tap, or tap, 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 and you feel that bite, you're gonna point your tip down, reel on the slack, and you're gonna give a big hook set, right? So your goal is to go from your left side, of course if you're on right hand, your left side, all the way up to your right shoulder, make sure I don't hit the ceiling, all the way up to your right shoulder with your hook set. So you want a big hook set, you wanna really drive that single wide or thick gauge hook into the fish's mouth, All right, you want to drive that hook home and then get the fish in the boat. Plus you've got 20-pound fluorocarbon, you've got a heavy rod, you've got a big hook. You can give it a big hook set and not worry about breaking off with the fish. All right, let's quickly talk about some colors and then we'll wrap up this video. So the two colors I like to throw for the Blitz Worm is again that black watermelon red flake and then just a black and blue. All right, the black and blue I will throw in dirtier stain waters. They also make a solid black that's pretty awesome. And then anything other than dark stain waters, I usually will throw this one as well, the black watermelon red. Okay, those two colors do really well, although I keep every color in my boat just because you never know. I really also like the summer craw color. Usually when it's hot, that color does really well as either plum or red bug does well in the hotter months or the colder months. Those are kind of the color spectrum. When it comes to the adrenaline craw, those same colors, but I'll mix in a couple others. As you can kind of see here, I've got a black and blue that I really like, again in that stained water. The watermelon red is kind of my go-to. I really like this border craw color. I'll show you that. It's red on one side and a green with golden red flake on the other. But that color does really well. And then if it's really natural color, I'll go with that green pumpkin blue flake. That is an awesome color as well. And sometimes I'll also, with either this one or the watermelon red flake, I will use like that dip and glow, and I'll dye the tips like a chartreuse color to help really add additional color to it. If you've ever seen like a sunfish or a bluegill in the summer, their tails are a little bit of a lighter color. So I'll use that dip and glow to somewhat mimic that, and it does pretty well. All right, last thing I'll talk about is Lake Welsh. There has been a grass kill earlier in the year. I don't believe it's impacted the fishing very much. In fact, I think it's actually made it better. There's actually more of the lake that's accessible now with different lures. Before, you pretty much had to throw like a weightless plastic or a weightless plastic or weedless plastic or weedless swim bait to get in and around all the grass. Now you can throw a lot of different lures. In fact, we were even throwing crankbaits on a recent trip and catching fish out there. So I think it's actually made the lake better. I've caught better fish these last couple of trips out there than I did last year when there was a ton of grass. So I say still go give it a try. If you're wondering where we were fishing, the exact spots, yes, this is a plug, but it's also the honest to God truth. We are fishing the Fish Life spot, or the Fish Life app, the spots that are there for Lake Welsh. So there's a power plant lake package. All right, so go check that out. I'll leave a link below. It's called the Fish Life, L-Y-F-E, Fish Life app. Every month the spots are updated, but every time I go to Lake Welsh, I use that app, and almost everywhere we caught fish, we're on the spots that the Fish Life app told us about. So pretty darn cool. I would check that out. And if you're going out there for more than a day or two, or even if you just don't want to make the long drive from Dallas, spend the night at Lake Welsh Getaway. It's right on the lake. This is, yes, it's a plug, but I don't necessarily get anything for plugging it. But Lake Welsh Getaway is an awesome property right by the boat ramp. You've got your own amazing place. Take several friends with you, family, etc. It's an awesome property. It's an Airbnb, or VRBO. I'll leave it below as well. Lake Welsh Getaway, check it out. All right, guys. Upcoming, we got a couple of videos. We're going to do an unboxing for the December MonsterBass. We're probably going to do a giveaway, so stay tuned for that one. We've also got some videos to come. One of them is probably going to be a bit controversial. All right. We're going to get into some things that are happening in the bass fishing industry right now that I think is actually hurting the sport. I don't believe it's helping the sport. But some people could argue that it's helping the sport. That's why it's somewhat controversial. We're going to get in that topic, so stay tuned for that video and more awesome content to come. I've got some other video ideas that I want to share with you guys, including some brand new lures that I've tried this year that have caught some really good fish for me and are now a staple in my boat, all right? So we're gonna talk about that as well in upcoming videos. Stay tuned, more to come. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, like and comment as well. And if nobody's told you today, God loves you, and so do I. Peace out.